Hello, James here. Just jumping in really quick to say, first of all, thank you very much for downloading. We hope you enjoy the podcast. If it's your first time, if you enjoy this one, why not go back and listen to some of the others we've already made? If you've already done that, please, could you rate and review us on wherever you get your podcasts from? It really helps us make the podcast more visible to the people who'd like it. Without it, the internet has a tendency to hide what we're doing. And as much as I've tried to, it will only let me rate it once. So please take your phone out your pocket or go onto the site on the internet that you're using and just give us a rating, whatever it is. We really need your help, guys. Remember, you can email us at theworldcupofworldcups@gmail.com and you can support us, ko-fi.com/worldcupofworldcups. We hope you continue to enjoy this free entertainment, and now we'll start the show. Thanks.
It's the World Cup of World Cups, Episode 11, Argentina, 1978.
Thursday, 1st of June 1978. Chris Auld takes 4 wickets in 5 balls for England at Edgbaston. The first international applications under the Patent Cooperation Treaty are filed, and at cinemas, The Great Brain starring little Jimmy Osmond is released. Meanwhile, in Buenos Aires, it's all kicking off. The first fashion faux pas of World Cup history.
I mean, that is a complaint that is levelled at us sometimes, is that our football podcast does occasionally drift into talking about football.
It's just amazing how you pick these things up when you watch it live. You go, wow, it's not all glamour, is it?
My liege, you give me noble honour.
The goal celebration is wonderful because none of this choreographed nonsense. He puts his fist to the air and he spits.
Because I am joining a strip joint. I will be the full Monty of Montevideo.
Not renowned for being a header of the ball, really.
After that, probably he never bothered again. Mai tai ha peju puraite, Mundial de los Mundos P, Episodio 11 Rehugua, Argentina, 1978. Gerrera, James Cook, Hachimori, Jepi Gawachi, Pablo Salvaje, Maite Pablo, Mba Nchape Raimi.
Bueno?
Are you speaking in Spanish, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm speaking in Guarani.
Ooh.
Because we've done Spanish. There are 200,000 Guarani speakers in Argentina, which is where we find the World Cup of World Cups in this episode. Also joining us is a comedian, actor and author who is a regular at comedy clubs all around the UK and at the Edinburgh Fringe, and whose book Buddhism and Other Such Rubbish is available now. And you can see his sitcom I've Got a Job for You, Gav, on Amazon Prime. He supports Newcastle United, and his great-uncle Joe Armstrong played for Portsmouth, Sheffield Wednesday, Norwich, Clapton, Orient and Bournemouth in the 20s. It's Gavin Webster.
Hello. That's quite an intro.
Well, you know, you're a big, impressive guest. For those people who don't know you, Gavin, despite your accent, you're a Scotland fan, is that right?
Yeah, I am, actually. I didn't know you knew that.
I've done my research, Gavin. Why is that, then?
My father was a Scotsman. He was from Leith, next to Edinburgh. A lot of it, coincidentally enough, has to do with what you've got me on as a guest for today. It was the 1978 World Cup, and it was the first World Cup I remember, and I remember being a big fan because England obviously weren't there. None of the home nations were. There was only Scotland. It took off from there.
So which kit from the 1978 World Cup would you be wearing in your football sticker?
I remember getting a kit at that time, and it's the one I remember with the blue shirt on, the badge, and Umbro down the arms, the white shorts, and the red socks with the Umbro pattern hooped around the top.
You got the full kit?
I did get the full kit. I think I got it afterwards, though. I think it was like the summer of 78.
They would have probably been a lot cheaper.
When you are 10, that is acceptable to wear a full kit, and then that is the last time.
But obviously, you know, you wear it for playing football in the...
Oh, yeah. Full kit on small children, absolutely fine. Full kit on a man in their 30s playing five-a-side, grow up.
We're going to get into Argentina 1978. Before that, though, quickly need to give the answer to the teaser we set at the end of the last episode when I asked, in 1974, the Netherlands became the first-time finalists since 1966, but in which World Cup would there next be a first-time finalist? Anyone want to have a go?
Oh, and by the way, I never get these, so...
Well, I would take a stab and say that it could well be Spain, wasn't it?
They were the next one in 2010, right. But there was one before then.
There was one.
Is it France 98?
It is France in 1998.
Oh, well,
yeah.
There were only 3 first-time finalists since Holland in 1974, France in 98, Spain in 2010, and Croatia in 2018. So Argentina have won the right to host the World Cup. They win the vote unopposed in 1966. So they've had 12 years to prepare for this. They are hosting under the military dictatorship led by Jorge Videla. But to be fair, they won the vote 12 years and 7 presidents before that. In 1966, Argentina was ruled by a military dictatorship, but a different one.
If you look at the history of Argentina in the 20th century, if there's one thing that they love apart from steaks and Malbec, it's having military coups.
The Videla dictatorship is oppressive and brutal. Around 30,000 Argentinians were disappeared in the 2 years leading up to the World Cup. Amnesty International tried to get European teams to boycott it. They didn't, but a load of players, including Paolo Rossi and Sepp Maier, sign a petition, which, achieves everything that petitions usually achieve, which is nothing. There were rumours banding around at the time that FIFA would relocate the World Cup to Brazil or, strangely, to Holland/Belgium, but nothing ever happened with that. Oh. The general who was put in charge of the organising committee, General Omar Actis.
He got murdered on the way to doing things.
Actis was assassinated on his way to his first press conference as head of the organising committee.
So Perón had been exiled in Spain, and then they brought him back after 15 years, and they had a press conference at the airport. And from under the press conference stand, so loads of people turned up to welcome him back, and then snipers burst out from underneath the press conference stand and shot a load of people. And then there was one where he came out to do a press conference, not even a press conference, like a rally in the streets to be like, support your president. And the Navy bombs their own people. So Argentina was mad at this time.
Yeah, I think the lesson here is don't do press conferences in Argentina.
Am I right in saying Johan Cruyff refused to go because of the situation?
Well, that's the thought, but he came out later and said that it was because somebody had tried to kidnap his wife and children, and that was in Barcelona where he lived. I think that they did use that at the time, that he was doing it on moral reasons.
The Dutch government wanted the Dutch football team to stay at home, but said it's not our call, it's the FA's call. And the FA said, we're going. Now, the official line is that it was the Montoneros, the sort of left-wing terrorists/freedom fighters, depending on your point of view, who assassinated Omar Actis. But other people say it wasn't them at all. It was an inside job done by Admiral Massera of the Navy, who wanted the job as head of the World Cup committee.
It's like X-rated Gilbert and Sullivan, this really, isn't it? You're breaking a song about Albert Massero of the Navy.
I am the very model of a modern Major General.
Because apparently Actis didn't want to spend any money on the tournament, which Videla sort of agreed with. He thought the World Cup was going to be a massive waste of money and he didn't want to do it. And it was Massera who talked him into doing it and saying, no, this would be a fantastic PR exercise.
One of the things the regime wanted to get rid of was the badge for Argentina in 1978 is a football being held up by like blue bands in a sort of hands way. And that was Perón's signature move when he would be like, hey, big hands. So they wanted to get rid of it. And FIFA had to say to them, we've spent so much money on branding already. You can't get rid of the badge just because you've already killed a bunch of people. You know, FIFA doing the right thing there.
But only because it would cost them money to not do it. On the Argentina 1978 branding thing, the mascot, do you remember the mascot from Argentina 1978?
If I saw a picture of it, I might recognise it, but I can't bring it to mind, really.
It was called Gauchito, a boy dressed as a gaucho in an Argentina kit, and he was the first and only World Cup mascot to be holding a whip.
Well, there you go. It's a bit of history there.
This World Cup is as close to 1934 as we get in terms of dodgy goings on that rig it in favour of the home team. In warm-up games, a year before the World Cup, England and Scotland go to play in Buenos Aires. Against England, Daniel Bertoni punches Trevor Cherry in the mouth.
He certainly did, yeah.
And the referee sends off both players.
Yeah, remember that.
And that was ostensibly a friendly.
Trevor Cherry sent off for being in the way of someone's fist. And against Scotland, Pernia punches Willie Johnson in the kidneys. And again, Both players are sent off. A month before the tournament, a bomb explodes outside the Buenos Aires press centre, and the Monteneros declare a ceasefire for the tournament. Meanwhile, every Thursday, the mothers of the disappeared are marching in Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires next to the presidential palace as a protest. And during the tournament, they'd be joined by Swedish third-choice goalkeeper Ronnie Hellström.
I mean, the cynic in me says, the manager said, look, Ronnie, you're not involved, really.
Yeah, and you're on your holidays. There's a lot of single mums here.
You know, Plaza del Mayo is a big square in the middle of Buenos Aires. He could have just been sightseeing and got caught up in it.
That would be my excuse if the military police picked me up.
Yeah.
What? No, just looking for the castle.
Buenos Aires Castle. In qualifying, 107 teams enter the qualifying, and there are 14 spaces. It is the first time over 100 countries had entered the competition, and that makes this the hardest World Cup to qualify for.
Is it next one that they open it up to 24?
It is, yeah, it is.
And people say, oh, that's because FIFA want more games. I think they have a reasonable argument to say, no, it's because when we started, no one wanted to be in this World Cup, and now everyone does. So
yeah, when you look at the teams that were left out, and you go, well, wouldn't you want some of those to play? It would be quite good to watch more than 3 teams from South America, more than 8 teams from Europe. You know, there'll be some really good ones that got left out.
Well, I've got a list of the notable absentees here. The European champions, Czechoslovakia, Panenka and his lot. The Olympic champions, East Germany. The African champions, Ghana, are not there. Uruguay were knocked out by Bolivia, of all people. And, of course, England knocked out on goal difference by Italy.
That group is ridiculous. So it's England, Italy, and then Luxembourg and Finland, neither of whom were good sides. And so England lose to Italy in Italy, beat Italy in England. But it goes down to which one hammered Luxembourg hardest.
England losing it to Italy was pretty much what signalled the end of Don Revie. I mean, obviously there was a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of skullduggery that went on, and I think he'd taken a lot of money to go and manage the United Arab Emirates. But I think you could say between the lines, the writing was on the wall in terms of his dodgy dealings. But more to the point, he kind of failed because by the time he left and Ron Greenwood took over, it was sort of all over by the shouting. England, I think, needed to beat Italy at Wembley by about 6 clear goals to give them a good chance of qualifying, which they played really well and they won 2-0 at Wembley. But Italy just then needed to beat Luxembourg. I don't know the exact number, by 2 or 3 goals, and they did quite easily. I've got this book called Kevin Keegan Playing for England Against the World. I haven't read it for a long time, but I think he played Mick Shannon, Kevin Keegan and Stan Bowles up front. And Keegan always insists that was the wrong mix. They were all kind of individuals, them, if you like. There was no big man to play off. There was no interchange. It was just 3 individuals. And he had Brian Greenhoff in midfield, who apparently had a really good game. But they said that it was Enzo Berzot, the Italian manager, was insisting that they doubled up on everybody but let Greenhoff have the ball. It's that tactic, which is probably still around now, of like, just let the kind of weaker midfield player have the ball. That's not as inventive. Just give him plenty of time on the ball. Sorry if we talk about football tactics in it, and it was. I know it gets a bit boring sometimes, but you know, make sure that you stop the others playing. And England subsequently lost the game.
I mean, that is a complaint that is levelled at us sometimes, is that our football podcast does occasionally drift into talking about football.
There's always that danger, isn't there?
Someone has called it a history podcast where football breaks out. Occasionally, it's an arsing around podcast where history breaks out.
I don't want to bring this down, but I want to talk about football here.
Don Revie quits England to go and manage the United Arab Emirates, and he manages to lead them to 7th place in the Gulf Nations Cup.
Wow. I didn't know there were 7 Gulf nations.
There are 8.
Have you any idea, James, who got the wooden spoon that year in that particular Gulf tournament?
Oman.
Oh, right, Oman.
Who lost all of their games.
It'd be great if it turns out you found out that Oman were managed by Bill McGarry or something like that.
Elsewhere in qualifying, in Africa, Tunisia beat Morocco on penalties in African qualifying, which is the first World Cup penalty shootout.
Wow.
Yeah, which means that no longer goes to stupid, convoluted drawing of lots, which means the small Italian boy has to go back. He gets unblindfolded and let out. Nigeria, Tunisia, and Egypt are in the final group. They all play each other twice. And Tunisia play at home in front of about 8,000 people. And then they go and play in Nigeria in front of 185,000 people. And then in Egypt in front of 190,000 people, which is, as home advantage goes, quite difficult.
And yet Tunisia qualify for the World Cup. So we say hello to Tunisia and we say hello to Iran, the Wales-Scotland qualifying game.
Oh, yeah.
It's a home game for Wales, and the Welsh FA decide to host that game in Liverpool.
Yeah.
At Anfield for money.
They had played at the racecourse ground in
Wrexham.
They play at Anfield because, we couldn't fit all of the people who wanted to be there, even though the racecourse ground was like the spiritual home of Welsh international football, and they hadn't lost there for donkey's years, and they lost to Scotland. And if they'd have won that, everyone would have won 2, lost 2 in the groups. It would have gone to something interesting.
It would have gone to goal difference.
But instead, Scotland's qualify.
So after about 78 minutes, the ball is pumped into the Welsh penalty area.
It's a throw in, isn't it? Isn't it a throw in? It's a long throw.
You know, loads of people challenge for the ball. A hand touches the ball, and the referee, who is Wirtz of France, gives a penalty to Scotland. Replays show that the hand that it had hit was Joe Jordan's hand.
Yeah, it's quite clear, really, isn't it? It is fairly clear. It's Terry Yorath, isn't it? That's in the box with him.
Dave Jones is who the referee thought it was.
Really?
Bob Wilson, one could almost say that was a Scottish hand.
I don't think so, Edward. I think it was from behind. If we have a look again,
we'll have a look again. But I could swear I saw Jordan's hand.
Alan Ruff, and this is not something associated with Alan Ruff, made a great save in that game where it was 0-0. It tipped it over the bar from a header. But I didn't realise it was 78 minutes, so it was quite late in getting on when Jordan got the penalty.
He kisses his hand, Jordan.
Oh, that is a beautiful bit of shit out of it.
Don Masson scores the penalty.
Yeah, Masson converted it, didn't he? Yeah.
And then with 5 minutes to go, Dalglish adds a second, which means
the header, isn't it? Yeah.
Scotland are through and Wales are not.
There's still a bit of hatred and bitterness to this day, especially with Jordan in Wales.
There's a rumour, and I've been trying to look for this to see if this is true, but it's been reported a couple of times, but I can't find the actual newspaper. It was reported that a Scottish newspaper the next day ran the headline, "We're on our way to Rio." Just having a holiday, are you? So not in Rio, but in Buenos Aires at the Estadio Monumental, River Plate's home ground, the opening match of the World Cup in 1978. The stadium had been renovated. The junta had loaned money to River Plate to renovate the stadium for the World Cup. But because of the crazy Argentinian economy around the late 70s, early 80s, River Plate couldn't keep up with the repayments, which basically had a massively detrimental effect on River Plate as a football team for years afterwards.
That's another thing that Argentina loves, as well as doing military coups and having states, is their entire economy collapsing. They've done that about 8 times.
Changing leader every couple of years and having a crazy economy. Who do they think they are? Us. The opening game, it should be a classic. It's third versus first from the 1974 World Cup, Poland versus West Germany, and a rematch of what was the de facto semi-final from that tournament. But it isn't. It's a terrible game that finishes 0-0. And this is the 4th 0-0 draw in a row in an opening game in a World Cup.
I remember the game. I remember watching it as a kid. I was quite young, and I remember a Polish player took a free kick, and I'd only seen free kicks on clips where they all flew into the net or tapped into somebody and somebody scored, and he took a free kick. It was a sort of an angled ball to the corner of the box, and I said to my dad, "Was that it? Was that the free kick?" He went, "Yeah, that was the free kick." It's just amazing how you pick these things up and you watch it live. You go, "Wow, it's not all glamour, is it?"
Yeah, it's like those sort of all tricks, flicks, skills compilations that they have on YouTube. If you've only watched those and then go to watch a game, you'd be like, when does he put it through 15 players' legs and click it in with his hair? Oh, no, that happens so irregularly.
It's also played on a really terrible pitch, and you go, it's the opening game in your main stadium. Why is the pitch this bad?
And you're doing this for PR reasons. Is it lumpy because there's hundreds have disappeared under it?
Good for the soil, that, though. You've got to be fair. You know, dead bodies.
West Germany are a shadow of their former selves. Only Sepp Maier, Bertie Vogst and Bonhoff survived from the 1974 final. This is weird. While they're in their training camp in Argentina, the West German squad is visited by Colonel Hans Ulrich Rudel, a Nazi fighter pilot who'd lived in Argentina since the war, sheltering other Nazi war criminals, including Joseph Mengele.
And he was popping in to what? Give them a bit of encouragement? Or
I'd like to meet the
just
team.
to let you know, if this goes really badly and you're not liked at home anymore, there's still a place for you here.
I'll say it, they might say, look, don't be fooled by a good start.
All these players were born after the Second World War. Hey, guys, we've got a special guest coming to visit today. The other teams in the group are Tunisia and Mexico. And in their game, Tunisia become the first African country to win a World Cup game. They beat Mexico 3-1. All the Tunisia goals are scored by defenders. And the third one is Carlos Alberto-esque. I'd recommend watching that one on YouTube if you can.
So you're saying that Tunisia were doing total football better than the Dutch in the 70s?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they scored a really nice goal. They scored a really nice goal against Mexico, who, let's not forget, are awful.
How many of these Mexicans sit under a tree and pine for Mexico?
Probably all of them. I mean, that's a callback to the 1958 episode, Paul.
Yeah.
Mexico are terrible again after the abomination of them getting to the quarterfinals in 1970. They get beat 6-0 by West Germany.
I watched that one as well. That was amazing.
Because obviously you can't watch all World Cup games if you've got a job. But one of the joys is of just picking a game at random and going, oh yeah, I'll sit down and watch this. And it being a banger of just watching going, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that.
A lot of it depends upon your bedtime. Even as an adult as well, you've got to go to work and you've got to get to bed. And I remember as a kid, I couldn't watch the late ones. So you end up catching the ones that might not be the more attractive ones because it's at a suitable time for you.
Well, Mexico lose all their games and they're out. And apart from hosting it in 1986, they're not going to qualify for another World Cup for 16 years. The Mexican squad featured Alfredo Tena, Capitan Furia, he was known as Captain Fury, Leonardo Cuella, their midfielder, who looks like an extra in a Cheech and Chong movie.
Yeah.
Ignacio Flores, their right back, who was killed in 2011 when gunmen attacked the truck he was in.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it just brings the mood down. I don't know why I mention it.
No, because it's interesting. We like it. Just keep doing it. But there is no real correct response from me. I can't be like, that's a good one, James. Do more of those. But I do like them.
Well, you said you were interested in what people did afterwards. Normally it's just, do you remember him? You end up working for Norwich Union or something like that. Or whatever.
Poland win their other games. That puts them through as group winners. And Tunisia can join them in the second round if they can beat West Germany.
Yeah, I watched this game as well. But I'll not give away the score, even though it's not that remarkable.
What do we not give it away? We're literally going to tell people what happened.
Yeah, but for the listeners going, I wonder what happened in that game when it was actually just a bit of a dull 0-0. Well, there you go. I've given it away anyway.
That was literally all I was going to say.
I do remember the game, and I remember them trying their best to beat them, and it was quite exciting as a young kid watching it. But they didn't quite push them over, and Germany got through uninspiringly, didn't they?
Yeah, Tunisia featured their forward Mohamed Akid, who died in strange circumstances in 1979. He was playing for a team in Saudi Arabia, and during training, he was struck by lightning. However, the family requested an autopsy in 2012, so 30 years later. And that autopsy revealed that there were 2 gunshot wounds in his body.
So at the same time, he's just struck by lightning. Wow, that really is lightning striking twice, isn't it?
Well, because what I was going to say was I don't think Saudi Arabia is that stormy a country.
So he shot by lightning, I suppose. Group 1 features Italy, the hosts Argentina, France and Hungary. It's a ridiculously difficult group.
And there was a thing that came out because obviously the phrase group of death, meaning that's a difficult group. One of the Argentinian generals went to, I think it was the Italian team, and went, nah, group of death, don't take any helicopter rides, group of death, and they went, oh shit.
Really?
Yeah.
A general went to the Italy team and told them not to go on a helicopter ride.
No, the helicopter ride is made up, but that's how they got disappeared.
In the opening game between France and Italy, Bernard Lacombe scores the first and quickest goal of the tournament after 37 seconds. But Paolo Rossi equalises after a bit of 6-yard box pinball, and substitute Zaccarelli gives the Italians the win.
It's a nice goal, that Zaccarelli one.
Argentina also come from behind in their game against Hungary, who have 2 players sent off in the last 3 minutes, and that is 2/3 of all the red cards in 1978.
Were they already losing at that point?
Yes, they were already behind.
Because there are some rumours of refereeing shithousery in this tournament, aren't there?
There's a lot of those, yes. Before we get on to those, though, we need to talk a little bit about the Argentinian squad numbers, which are done alphabetically. Attacking midfielder Norberto Alonso and Ozzy Ardiles are wearing number 1 and 2. And their goalkeeper, Ubaldo Filiol, is wearing number 5.
No, I don't like it.
It's wrong, isn't it? They did the same in 1982
They did
as well.
do that. I was going to say Ardiles had a 1 on his back. Yeah.
However, in 1986, FIFA bring in a rule that says, stop it.
Stop it.
Number players properly. Against France, Argentina score from a fairly contentious penalty. I say fairly contentious. Contemporary reports of the game say it's incredibly contentious. What happens is their defender Trezor falls on the ball, and as he falls on it, he hits the ball with his arm, and the referee gives a penalty for handball. At the time, that wasn't a penalty. Now, it is.
Yeah.
Because everything's a bloody penalty these days. The Argentinian player Daniel Valencia almost scores one of the great goals, but Jean-Paul Bertrand Demont, the French goalkeeper who has 4 names, injures himself tipping it over the bar. Platini equalises. Didier Cease should score, but misses. And then Derek Small's lookalike, Leopoldo Luque, has all the time in the world to volley in from outside the box.
It's like fire and ice, basically. You see, I feel my role in the band is to be kind of in the middle of that, kind of like lukewarm water.
You were saying about the refereeing. During the game, apparently when Passarella fouls a French player, the referee says to him, if you do that again, I might have to give it. The rumours are that the Argentinian players are on speed because apparently after the French game, the noises coming from their dressing room are just like 22 men screaming and shouting. One of the random drug tests that's given to an Argentinian comes back positive for that player being pregnant.
I've heard a story that Luque, his brother, died in a car accident during the tournament, but they didn't tell him. They kept it quiet because they thought it might upset him, so they didn't tell him that his brother had died.
Oh, my God. I mean, I imagine it would upset him.
I don't know when they did tell him. I know that his brother did die in the accident. It was the day that Argentina played Italy.
So, he obviously didn't know there was probably a funeral that he couldn't go to.
Well, he does miss the game, Italy-Argentina. So I just assumed that it was because his brother died in a car accident that day. Both Italy and Argentina are already through by the time that game happens. Italy win 1-0.
Yes, it was the only game they lost, wasn't it, Argentina? Because they didn't go through unbeaten. I think it was only Brazil went unbeaten in the tournament.
The referee, Abraham Klein from Israel, sort of referees the game properly. As such, Argentina stop him from refereeing any more of their games. Yeah, seriously, he was supposed to be doing the final and they get him bumped off the final. Also in that game, both team sweepers, Passarella of Argentina and Scirea of Italy, were born on exactly the same day. There's another dead rubber in the group when France play Hungary. They're both already out. Both teams show up in white kits. France have to borrow shirts from a local team called Kimberley, who play in green and white stripes. So France are in green and white stripes in this game.
It really doesn't go with the shorts either, which is hilarious.
It's a fashion faux pas.
Yeah,
the first fashion faux pas of World Cup history. The Hungarian squad features Ferenc Fulop, a midfielder. He was the dad of Martin Fulop, who'd be a goalkeeper playing for Coventry, Sunderland, Leicester and Ipswich, amongst others.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
His dad, Ferenc, is in Escape to Victory.
Ooh.
But he plays for the baddies.
Ooh.
The French team making his debut against Hungary is their goalkeeper, Dominique Dropsy, who also is in a film. He appears alongside Omar Sy and Jean Reno in the 2012 film Les Seigneurs, about a former footballer living in Brittany who enlists his old teammates to help the local fishermen to win some games in order to raise money and save jobs. It has an IMDb rating of 5.4. So it is probably no good.
I'm just thinking about how playing football saves Brittany jobs. That doesn't really matter.
I don't know, they win a subsidy. I don't know. The French squad also includes Henri Michel, who would go on to manage France in 1986, Cameroon in 1994, Morocco in 1998, and Ivory Coast in 2006. Olivier Royer, their winger. I can't believe more isn't made of this. Olivier Royer came out in 2008.
So that's our first out gay player to play at the World Cup.
He wasn't out at the time. He came out later. But as far as we know, he's the first gay player at the World Cup.
Oh.
Statistically, there were probably others in the 30s. I mean, I don't want to reduce this quite uplifting story to just a stupid joke. But do you know which French team he played for?
Is it Nancy?
Yes.
It's gone very Benny Hill, hasn't it? Fair enough. It is funny, though.
Did he really stay away from Brest?
Yes, very good. There was famously once a French league table, and if you read the clubs down, it said, "Nice breast, Nancy." Hey, have you ever played a board game? You have? Then you'll love my book, 101 Board Games to Play Before You Die. I look at the board games that we've loved, hated, and thrown across the room in a fit of rage. I'll tell you which classic games are not worth the time and emotional torment, and which games you should be playing instead, as well as giving you advice on how to make your dinner parties more tolerable and how to pimp your Scrabble. The perfect gift for your nerdy friend, it's available from 101boardgames.com. That's 101boardgames.com. Group 3, Austria, Brazil, Spain and Sweden. 3 games take place in Mar del Plata, which is the southernmost World Cup venue ever.
And the Swedish played there, so they played at the northernmost and southernmost.
Yes, they have the widest range.
Wow.
There are only 8 goals in these games in Group 3. It would have been 9, but for the most pedantic bit of refereeing ever. Clive Thomas, the Welsh referee in the Brazil-Sweden game.
Brazil get a corner. I believe it was 1-1. The corner comes over. The Brazilian comes up, head the ball towards the net, and as it leaves his head and is flying towards the net, he blows for full time.
Dalino's kick is a good one. It's brilliantly put in. So the ball was in the back of the net, but as soon as that ball was kicked, the whistle went, and it doesn't count.
I mean, the point is, I think you give a corner, don't you, sometimes, and you blow on the corner just to say, no, that's the end of it. But he insisted that he was making a name for himself. I don't care if he wants to try and plead any kind of different outcome. Yeah. But, you know, the fact was he blew away the balls in the air because he was Clive the Book Thomas. He liked to be the most important person on the pitch.
Yeah, it was Zico whose header it was.
Was it Zico, was it, right? Yeah. Not renowned for being a header of the ball, really.
Yeah, well, after that, probably he never bothered again.
It's bad luck, Kurt's heading the ball.
Even now, what with all modern technology and things, football timings are just kind of finger in the air stuff, aren't they? Anyway, it's just kind of we roughly think this is the end of the game. To have that sort of split second, no, this is the end.
Yeah, and to be fair, nobody cares. None of the Brazilians would have complained at all if the corner was taken, and as soon he had the whistle to his mouth, and as soon as the corner got taken, the whistle, nobody would have complained. But he just wanted to, as you know, split hairs on it. To be fair, we're talking about it now, and that's probably what he wanted now.
Yeah, we were just playing into his hands.
He got a reaction. That's what he wanted. He apparently still got death threats from Brazilians for years. Oh, yeah, I'm going to come to Pontypridd and do you over. No, you're not.
He never referees another World Cup game after this. Julio Cardonosa misses an open goal against Brazil that would have taken Spain through, but it doesn't. The only goal of the Brazil-Austria game was scored by Roberto Dynamite.
Wow, he's dynamite!
I remember him.
I'm just going to Google image search him, because if he doesn't look like how I imagine him, I'm going to be very disappointed.
How do you imagine Roberto Dynamite looks?
Right, he's got a big flowing sort of leather jacket. That's
You think
just
he's playing in a leather jacket?
Yeah. He's got shades on. He's smoking like a 12-foot cigar. He's just he doesn't look dissimilar. That's a cool-looking man. Roberto Dynamite. Bow.
He goes on to be a member of the State Assembly of Rio de Janeiro.
Add him to our team of MPs.
That game was refereed by Robert Wirtz, who was nicknamed the Nijinsky of the Whistle.
Was there just so much more time in 1978 than we have now? Because I just don't think anyone goes, do you know who needs a nickname? Is the referee.
Is that Nijinsky after the Austrian ballet, or is it the horse in the derby? Because obviously Colin Bell was known as Nijinsky, but that was obviously to do with the horse, wasn't it? Wasn't, I presume, anyway. Who knows? Lost in the midst of time, isn't it?
We'll never know.
Yeah, and maybe who am I to start, splitting hairs by asking? It's just better if we don't.
If you do know, email him.
The Spanish centre-back Migueli is nicknamed Tarzan. And he went to prison for a month because during his military service, he didn't have the correct permit to leave the barracks to go and play a game for Cadiz. So he was in prison for a month.
If you're on national service, how is prison that different? You're still like, you've got to be in these places at these times and got to wake up at this point. You're like, all right, it's pretty similar, isn't it?
The Swedish squad includes Bjorn Nordqvist, who's playing in his third World Cup, and he gets his 115th cap during this World Cup, which everyone thinks is a world record. But it turns out that a bloke from Malaysia had already got over 130. Roy Anderson, whose sons Patrick and Daniel both play for Sweden in later World Cups, and their forward, Benny Wendt. And if he married Liverpool winger and England player Alan Accourt, then divorced him and married Danny Ings, he'd be Benny Wendt Accourtings. And Group 4. This is the group we want to talk about. It's the finalists from 1974, the Netherlands. It's the Asian Cup holders, Iran. It's the Copa America champions, Peru. And it's Scotland.
I believe they won the home internationals the season before, didn't they? 77.
All right, let's say that. Yeah, they did, yeah. Home international champions, Scotland.
There you are. Get it right.
Scotland were really fancied. These could be World Cup winners. I mean, he's probably the best Scottish side.
As I remember, there were about fifth favourites, but what a lot of Scottish people, and indeed in the future, a lot of English people don't seem to understand that the bookies is a numbers game. So a lot of people in the UK are lumping money on it. That's why there are quite short odds. It's not really to do with form, whereas if you went to a German bookies, you would find that they would be much higher up in the pecking order. It's something that I don't think British people, a lot of them, understand really, that it's actually it's a markets game. And the reason why you are a favourite, unlike a domestic competition, is because it's all about how much money people are putting on it so they can lay it off.
Yeah, and no one fancied the Scots more than their coach, Ali MacLeod.
Absolutely.
They famously said, "My name is Ali MacLeod and I am a winner."
Apparently they said to him, "What will you do after the World Cup?" He said, "We'll retain it."
I have a feeling that's an urban myth.
That's all right. It's one of them smears, isn't it? I love that sort of thing. Do you know what else he said as well? The idiots. No, you've just made that up.
we talk about Ali's Tartan Army.
We're on the march with Ali's Army. We're going to the Argentina.
The song that got to number 6 in the UK chart by Andy Cameron, a comedian and Rangers fan. He came second in New Faces 1975 and would go on to do stand-up before games at Ibrox until an Aberdeen fan ran onto the pitch and hit him.
I didn't know that.
He put all the money he made from the single into producing an album, but by the time that was released, Scotland were already out and no one bought it.
Oh.
I think the B-side was called I Want to Be a Punk Rocker, but my mummy wouldn't let me.
I want to be a punk rocker, but my mummy won't let me.
They didn't take Alan Hansen, did they?
Alan Hansen was very young at the time. I don't think that one's fair, but the more logistical one was they didn't take Andy Gray, who had scored a load of goals for Villa the season before. I think he was the highest scorer in England the season before, and they never took him, which was ridiculous,
Also, Danny McGrain was injured.
Yeah.
And Gordon McQueen was injured, but they took him anyway.
Semi-injured, yeah. Yeah, there was a couple of other ones, and notably people that were in were people like Joe Harper, who I think he stayed loyal to because he was at Aberdeen with him, and there was better players than him. They're actually, for the only time in their history, they were spoilt for a bit of choice, really.
And, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but didn't play Graham Souness in the first 2 games.
He didn't, and I believe Gemmell wasn't playing in the first game, certainly. I don't know whether he was... he definitely wasn't playing at the beginning. I know Kenny Burns was playing in the first game and didn't play anymore after that. It was all a bit of a disaster, really.
In their first game against Peru, they do take the lead through Joe Jordan after 90 minutes. So nothing can go wrong now. Before half-time, Cesar Cueto equalises, and apparently at half-time, Alan McLeod tells Alan Rough to kick the ball harder.
That is coaching at a top level.
Scotland get a penalty, but Don Masson misses it.
And he saved it. A brilliant save again by Haroga.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a very weak penalty. The captain of the Scottish team, Martin Buchan, who is the only player to ever captain an FA Cup and Scottish Cup winning team. He was being played out of position in this, and he said that no one had told him that the Peruvian winger, Juan Jose Monante, was fast.
They were sent videotapes, which were quite new at the time, about the Peruvian players, including Cubias. And they went, what, him? He was in 1970. He's old. And apparently McLeod said, let them worry about us.
Old man Cubias, who was 29. Scores 2 goals in about 5 minutes, including a free kick which sails over Lou Macari's head.
The free kick is, mind you, to be fair, is phenomenal. Have you seen it? It's the outside of his right foot and it curls round the wall. It's a wonderful free kick.
Lou Macari, he'd led complaints that the £20,000 bonus the players would receive if they won the World Cup was too low. To be honest, they could have offered them £1 billion each to win the World Cup. A bunch of the players tried to earn extra money by selling stories to the press about the disarray and tensions in the Scottish camp.
That comes back in later World Cups as a not great way to do team harmony.
Lou Macari owns a chip shop in Manchester. Do you know what it's called?
The Cubias free kick.
It's called the Lou Macari Chip Shop.
I could see why I didn't get the pun that he was going for.
To be fair to Lou Macari, he runs a charitable centre in Stoke as a retreat for homeless people. And during COVID, he rented a warehouse, filled it with glamping pods, and let homeless people stay in it.
Oh, well done, Lou Macari.
With all the money he got from selling stories to the press. After the game, McLeod blames the players. The players blame the lack of water in the hotel swimming pool. And Willie Johnson is sent home for taking phencamphamine, which he says is in a cold tablet, but it was actually pep pills.
Yeah, allegedly. It was to make him, quote, run faster.
He went on to play in the North American Soccer League, during which time he mooned while on the pitch at one point. And there's another clip online of him. He goes off to take a corner. There's
I think it is.
All right, what do you think happens, Gavin?
Doesn't he sell a bloke a greenhouse or something when he's taking a corner? Buys a greenhouse off somebody. Is that correct?
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, that sounds amazing. I hope that is true. This instance that I'm talking about, there's a guy in the crowd with a beer, and as Johnson goes up to take the corner, he sort of motions to the bloke, "Can I have a swig?" The guy gives him the can, and he takes a big swig of the beer and gives it back. He takes the corner, and his team score from it.
I didn't know that.
Is that, therefore, a performance-enhancing drug?
Good point.
What? Yeah, could be.
I play better pool and darts when I've had 3 pints. That's just science, isn't it? You're just going to get loosened up.
The optimum 3.
Yeah.
If you want to see Willie Johnson's memorabilia from his career, it's apparently locked up inside a boarded-up pub in Kirkcaldy.
Is he the first player that we've had that is 2 names for a penis?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
There was
the bell then.
There was that Walter Dick, wasn't there, who played for the United States in the 30s, but it's not a Walter, isn't a penis.
Oh, yeah.
Kenny Burns is in the Scotland team. He just won Footballer of the Year. When a Dutch reporter is told, that's the guy who won Footballer of the Year, the Dutch reporter says, "You are pulling my trousers."
When I was a kid, I got interested in football. I got interested in Newcastle United in 76, 77. They qualified for Europe, and that was the first got into 5th place. It was a great season. And then massively got interested in 77, 78. It was a disaster of a season. They finished second bottom. They got relegated. In 78, when I was really down as a result of that, my Scottish father said, "Don't worry, the World Cup's coming up and Scotland are in it." But anyway,
Scotland have got to play Iran. All they have to do, they just have to beat Iran. Kenny Burns is subbed after he has his head cut by his own player.
Was that Buchan? Was that Buchan?
No, it's Donachie.
Oh, it's Donachie, right.
Yeah, Willie Donachie, who is currently the manager of Montserrat. Nice work if you can get it. But Scotland again take the lead. Do you remember the goal that Scotland scored against Iran?
It was an own goal, wasn't it?
That's right. It was Andranik Eskandarian of Iran, who would go on to play for the New York Cosmos. He's now a US citizen and he owns 2 sporting goods stores in New Jersey. But Iraj Danifer equalises for Iran, which gives Iran their first ever World Cup point, and the Scottish fans chant, "You only want the money."
Are they chanting that at their own team, or are they chanting that at the Iranians?
Yeah.
just to everyone, really.
I believe there's only about 7,000 or 8,000 at that game as well. It might only be a few dozen Scottish fans all chant at their own team. That was
7,938.
I wasn't far away. Well, I was around that figure here.
In Cordoba.
But that must be such a weird thing. In the late 70s, you wouldn't have been able to get flights out there as easily as you can now.
Yeah, there was stowaways on ships and all sorts of things. People hitchhiking across the Andes and everything, you know. I think there was only in their hundreds, the Scots, not in their thousands.
Well, the Dutch are also in this group. They're without Cruyff, and the Dutch without Cruyff is described by one journalist as being a superb machine without its inventor.
Then it works. Yeah.
You don't need Alexander Graham Bell every time you need to use a telephone.
You don't need the inventor. They're not very good, these Dutch pressmen, are they? They're really profound, but they're actually a bit piss poor, really.
The Dutch have not picked the UEFA Cup winning goalkeeper Jan van Beveren, and they have not picked the Eridivisie's top scorer for the past 4 seasons, Ajax centre-forward Ruud Giels. But they do have Robbie Rensenbrink.
The Snake, I think he's called.
The Snake.
He'd scored a hat-trick against Iran, including 2 penalties. Funnily enough, Kubelas scores a hat-trick, including 2 penalties against Iran as well. And they're the only 2 hat-tricks in the World Cup.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then the Netherlands and Peru, they play out a 0-0, which means that Scotland have to beat the Dutch by 3 goals. The game takes place at Estadio Ciudad de Mendoza, which would later be renamed Estadio Malvinas Argentinas. After the Falkland War. McLeod decides to play this plucky youngster, Graham Souness, who'd been bafflingly left out. Bruce Rioch hits the bar. Kenny Dalglish has a goal disallowed, and Joe Jordan should have had a penalty.
The disallowed goal is for no reason as well.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous.
But the Dutch take the lead instead from the spot. It's Rensenbrink again, and that goal is significant because it is the 1,000th World Cup goal. At the stroke of half-time, Kenny Dalglish equalises. So it's 1-1. Scotland just need to score another 3 goals.
The halftime show, which Gav helpfully put in the group chat I'd not seen before, is one of the most astonishing pieces of television. It's Jimmy Hill and like 4 ex-pros on these weird leather sofas. And then there's a bit where one of them starts talking about refereeing and then goes into this really convoluted... If he starts murdering people with his car, what do you say?
It's Jack Taylor, who, of course, was a famous referee, refereed 74 final, I think. So Jack Taylor says that, no, I'm not having anything said against that referee. He's a good referee. And Jimmy Hill's trying to act as mediator and says, no, but this is happening to all the teams, not just Scotland. And it's a perfectly good goal. Why did he disallow it? And Jack says, well, you know, that was his intuition that he was offside. And he normally gets decisions right, this referee. And Laurie McMenemy pitches in with this ridiculous Laurie McMenemy speak that he thinks he's some sort of sage, you know, with his booming Gateshead accent. He says, well, I mean, you could say, like, he's a very good driver, but ever so often he runs people over. Would that make him a good driver or just accident prone? And you go, Laurie, why are you talking about road accidents? This is horrific.
Well, it's like drivers, Jim, isn't it? I mean, overall, a driver can be good, but if every now and again he knocks somebody over... What does that make him? A bad driver or just accident prone?
And even Jimmy Hill, of all people, he's obviously getting in the ear from the producer saying, Jimmy, for f***'s sake, move on, you know? Anyway, let's talk about the goal that was allowed, and I think it's one of the most remarkable bits of television I've ever seen.
Anyway, 1 minute into the second half, Souness is fouled in the area, and Archie Gemmill takes the penalty and scores. Now, Scotland only need 2 more. And then Archie Gemmill scores one of the great World Cup goals, FIFA say the 7th best of all time. It's inspired a sequence in the movie Trainspotting.
I felt that good since Archie Gemmill scored against Holland in 1978.
And a ballet.
Yeah. Because there's a thing for steps in dance where it will show you what you should be doing, like musical notation. And there is the dance notation for Archie Gemmill's goal, if you so wish to do it yourself.
Yeah, with the feet outlined on the floor, and you can sort of follow the feet.
Marvellous.
And completely recreate it.
And then the celebration's wonderful, because none of this choreographed nonsense. He puts his fist to the air and he spits. And I remember the commentary well. I remember watching it as a kid, and it was a lovely moment because David Coleman, because obviously it was the English commentary, said, and Scotland are in dreamland, and they need one more goal to qualify. It was an amazing moment, and it lasted 90 seconds because Holland came up and scored from miles out, you know, a wonderful strike, and it was Johnny fucking Rep again who had destroyed my dreams earlier season against Newcastle United, and he scored from again a bit of an underrated goal actually, because it was just after that goal. It was a terrific strike.
It's not the last time that a Dutch consolation goal would send Scotland out of a tournament.
Yeah, Clivert, who would then sign for Newcastle and be dreadful.
Is that Euro 96, is that?
Yeah, it was at Euro 96, same thing. Archie Gemmill, when he got signed by Brian Clough for Derby, Gemmill didn't want to go to Derby. So Brian Clough drove to his house and said that he was going to sleep outside in the car until he signed for him. But apparently Gemmill's wife invites him in and he stays in the spare room. Eventually, in the morning, Gemmill agrees to sign for Derby. Archie Gemmill's son, of course, Scott Gemmill.
Scott, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you know why he's called Scott?
No.
Because he's Scottish. That's genuinely true. Archie Gemmill drove his pregnant wife to Scotland to ensure that his son would be born in Scotland.
Wow.
Johnny Rep. No Dutch player has scored more World Cup goals than him. He scored 7. There's an Irish indie band named after him, and there's a song by the French rock group Mickey 3D called Johnny Rep.
Ce soir c'est le tout premier match de la saison. Et Johnny Rep a les cheveux blonds.
Oh, let's talk a little bit about some of the players in the Iran squad.
I've just realised roughly when this happens. This is going to be sad, isn't it?
Sort of, some bits. Their goalkeeper, Nasser Hijazi, was nicknamed the legendary Iranian goalkeeper. It's not a nickname, it's a description. He nearly signed for Man United. He had a trial for them. He tried to run for president of Iran in 2005, but wasn't allowed. In 2011, he was banned from TV for saying, I'm very sorry for our people. They have oil and petroleum, but some of them are poor. His son's name is Attila, and he's mentioned by name in season 3 of the American TV show Homeland.
Nasser Hijazi. Do you know him?
I know he played goalkeeper for Iran's 1978 World Cup team. He's a legend there.
There also was a midfielder, Hassan Naibaga, who was one of the leaders of the People's Mujahideen of Iran, who are an anti-government group, as was their sub-goalkeeper, Bahram Mavadat, who was a member of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, and their striker, Hassan Raushan. In 2011, he was sentenced to 74 lashes for speaking up against corruption. So Hassan said, OK, if you're going to lash me 74 times, you need to do it in a stadium. What he said was...
I'd be like, do it 78 times just for...
For the World Cup that he appeared in.
Yeah.
He'd said about a Tehran-based football team that they were interested in making money from rich families and did not produce any professional players. That's what he said. So I guess I'm a wanted man in Iran now for saying that. I can't find any evidence that the lashes ever happened. just that the sentence was given out.
I didn't know there was some sort of Hansard magazine about there was lashes given. I don't know where you would find the evidence for lashes, really.
It was widely reported in the press at the time.
All right,
in the British press as well.
Is it because it's what people want to read?
Into the second round, the format is the same as 1974, so they're persisting with more groups instead of a knockout.
Sorry, I'm wrestling it. I'm giving the cat a treat so he f***s off. Right.
Peter Bonetti?
I thought Peter Bonetti's nickname was the legendary Chelsea goalkeeper.
So, Group A is 4 European teams. It's Austria, Netherlands, Italy, and West Germany. Italy versus West Germany is goalless, but Dino Zoff breaks the record for the most international clean sheets. The Dutch then beat Austria 5-1, Rensenbrink scoring his 5th goal and 4th penalty, before a rematch of the 1974 final, West Germany against the Netherlands. But this time, the Dutch get an equaliser, and it finishes 2-2. Rudiger Abramczyk opens the scoring for West Germany. He is nicknamed Flankengott.
Which is?
Godlike winger.
Ooh.
Do you know, it's no wonder we left this bloody EU. They're ridiculous people, aren't they?
Ari Hahn scores a blinder just from like a mile out. But I've watched the extended highlights of this game, and he tries it a couple of times before
just getting a sighter in. You can let him do that. He just keeps pinging it into Rosette. Oh no, we should have.
It's the Malcolm McDonald school of goal scoring, you know.
Rene van der Kerkhoff scores in exactly the same minute that his twin brother Willie did against Austria. That's weird, isn't it?
Twins are weird.
Yeah. Although Rolf Russmann, the German defender, does a sort of Superman dive to try and keep the ball out from Van der Kerkhoff, but he just ends up punching it into his own net so that he doesn't get punished or anything. They just go, oh, it's goal. Just, you're an idiot.
Well, that's kind of nice.
Late in the game, Dick Naninga is sent off for laughing.
What?
All right.
It's true. He laughs at the referee's decision and the referee sends him off. It's like one of those Hindus that get thrown out of a comedy club. Thrown out for laughing.
Yeah.
And he is the first substitute to be sent off at a World Cup.
All right. And that's the three. That's the complement of the three, isn't it? There's the two in the other match, and that's it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Paolo Rossi's goal gives Italy the win over Austria, which means that going into the final games, there are 3 teams that can qualify for the final. But West Germany will need to beat Austria by 4 goals, and for the Dutch and the Italians to draw. Suffice to say, they don't do that. They lose to Austria, and Bertie Vogts scores an own goal. Bertie Vogts, nicknamed Der Terrier.
Sometimes it's really easy to speak other languages, isn't it? You can just be like, yeah, I got that one.
He was playing in his 3rd World Cup. He would later go on to manage Germany after Beckenbauer, after he said a unified German team would probably be unbeatable for years. He won Euro 96, but got knocked out of the World Cup at 2 quarterfinals. He'd also take Scotland to their lowest ever world ranking. He got Nigeria knocked out of the quarterfinals of the African Cup of Nations and did nothing with Azerbaijan. Hans Krankel scores 2 goals for Austria in this game.
Did he get the winner? I think he got the winner, didn't he?
Yes, that's right, he did. In Austria, they call this game the Miracle of Cordoba, which is a bit much for a dead rubber. It didn't really matter, but they call it that. Hans Krankel once scored 6 goals against Malta in a game. His 1985 single, Lonely Boy, got to number 2 in the Austrian charts.
Oh, was that 1985? I was trying to work it out because you gave me that clip of that. That's It's got its charm.
Irgendwie, irgendwo, irgendwem musst du.
The Austrian football fans all know the commentary from this game in much the same way we have, but I think it's all over it is now. The Austrian fans have the commentary for Hans Krankel's 2nd goal, which is which means goal, 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 goal. I'm going crazy. So the big decider is Holland versus Italy. Holland just need a draw. Italy need a win. Italy take the lead through an own goal by Ernie Brandts, who also injures the Dutch goalkeeper in the collision. But Brandts scores the equaliser for the Dutch and becomes the first player to score at both ends in the World Cup game.
Right. By the way, James, is the goalkeeper Jan Youngblood?
No, Youngblood is the one who comes in. It's Shrivers who gets injured.
Right, I see.
Ari Hahn, incredibly, repeats his Thunder Bastard trick for the winner. And the Netherlands are in the final. West Germany, their squad featured the striker Ronald Worm, who's a lesser-known Peppa Pig character. Group B had 3 South American teams and Poland. Brazil and Argentina draw 0-0 in a bad-tempered game after they both got routine wins. Mario Kempes scores his first 2 goals of the tournament against Poland and clears the ball off the line with his hand and isn't punished. Poland beat Peru 1-0, even though Peru's goalkeeper...
Yeah, he tries to take players on, doesn't he? He starts trying to dribble past players and then the Polish player nicks it off him, so he has to foul him, doesn't he?
He fouls Lato in the opposition half. What are you doing there? And it's referee Pat Partridge who only gives him a yellow.
That's right.
And Kuroga then sort of bows.
My liege, you give me noble honour.
Pat Partridge was the referee of a very significant game in 1972. He was the referee when Arsenal played Liverpool and the linesman was injured and had to be replaced by...
Jimmy Hill.
Jimmy Hill came down to be the linesman in the game. We're getting to the bit now where that people talk about the World Cup being rigged. Basically, the real rigging is the fact that Argentina made Brazil play their game first so that Argentina would know what they needed to do.
Yeah.
Roberto Dynamite scores 2 as Brazil beat Poland 3-1, meaning that Argentina know they need to beat Peru by 4.
And Peru, decent side.
They beat Scotland.
Drew with Holland. They were decent.
The Peruvian goalkeeper that we mentioned, Quiroga, was born in Argentina. There was rumours about this game, about the Peruvian players being leaned on. There's rumours of big grain shipments and unfreezing of Peruvian bank accounts and dissidents being released into Argentina so they can be tortured and everything. Although there's no real sort of hard evidence of match fixing.
There is, though? Come on. Tell them what the score is. They need to win by 4.
Yeah, and Argentina wins 6-0.
Yeah. It's
the things you're saying, James. I know this might sound a little bit racist, but if you said them in a kind of a cod Argentinian accent, where you go, "There is no evidence. There is no evidence." It just sounds like dodgy, you know.
Well, Argentina had beaten Peru 3-1 away just before the World Cup. Peru had never beaten Argentina in Argentina. Peru hit the post twice, and after it went to 4-0, the last 2 goals, Peru had clearly just given up. But another 2 goals for Kempes, and that meant Brazil were out and unbeaten. Just quickly mention that the captain of Poland, Kazimierz Dana, is in Escape to Victory, and he goes on to play for Man City.
I believe he died not long. He died in a car crash or something, didn't he? He didn't.
Yeah, in 1994. Usually it's me who says that, but the Peruvians, their captain, Hector Chumpetaz, known as El Capitan de America, America's captain. He was subbed off after 55 minutes versus Argentina for no apparent reason.
To go into a Marvel film.
Teofilo Cubalas, he scores 5 goals in 2 World Cups. The only other players to do that are Thomas Muller and Miroslav Klose. Of South Americans, only Ronaldo and Pelé have scored more World Cup goals.
And he only played, I believe he played in 70 and 78, didn't he? He didn't play in any others, did he?
He plays in 82, but
nothing. Oh, does he?
He's 33 by then.
Oh, I didn't know that. And
yeah.
I didn't know they were in 82.
The other striker, Hugo Sotil, nicknamed El Cholo.
It's a really specific look, the Cholo look. Gang members look like that.
He was in a film in 1972 called Cholo about a painter whose footballing skills take him to Europe. A week after the film was released, the director of the film had it removed from cinemas because it had negative reviews.
Really?
It has an IMDb score of 5.7. And the Peru squad also included the right winger that we mentioned earlier, the one who Martin Buchan didn't realise was fast, Juan Jose Monante, who was nicknamed the Jet, and the Cobra. So he is the first player to be nicknamed after two gladiators. The third place playoff is Rivellino's final game as Italy play Brazil. Italy take the lead, but Brazil come back in the second half to win 2-1. Italy hit the woodwork 4 times.
Oh.
But the winning goal for Brazil, I believe, is an inside of the right foot job that flies in.
The Italians featured the world's most expensive player, Paolo Rossi, 1.75 million he'd gone for. Roberto Bettiga, nicknamed La Penne Bianca, the white feather. And Claudio Sala, Il Poeta del Gol.
Oh, very nice.
The goal poet.
He's one of those goal poets you get nowadays.
Aldo Maldera, the defender, was nicknamed The Horse. We can all imagine why. The midfielder, Lionello Manfredonia, got a 3-year ban for match fixing in 1980, but came back after that. In a game against Bologna in 1989, he had a heart attack, but he lived, and he's still around now. The Brazilian squad was coached by Claudio Coutinho, who died in a scuba diving accident in 1981. Their goalkeeper, Emerson Leo, would go on to manage at least 20 teams, including managing Brazil for 11 games. And in 2013, he was voted the worst Brazil coach ever.
It was actually voted to that as well.
Yeah. In the 1997 CONMEBOL Cup final between Atletico Mineiro and Lanús, he was in a massive fight and afterwards had to have his face rebuilt.
Oh, bloody hell.
In 2002, when he was at Santos, he got into a fight and had pepper spray sprayed into his eyes.
Had them rebuilt as well. Just piece by piece, you can rebuild a football coach.
On to the final. Argentina versus the Netherlands. Argentina show up 5 minutes late, and then they complain that René van der Kerkhof's got a bandage on his forearm.
A cast. Yeah.
The referee, the Italian bank manager, Sergio Gonella, goes, "Oh, okay, we'll try and do something about it then." The Dutch players say he's worn it the whole tournament and no one has minded.
Yeah.
And the Dutch players are threatening to walk off in protest. And I really wish they had. In the end, they just add another layer to the bandage as a compromise, but the whole thing takes 12 minutes.
I remember it well.
The pitch is also covered with...
ticker tape.
Yeah, well, that's what they say it is. It's actually toilet roll, which means that the World Cup final in 1978 is played on a pitch that looks like the festival just ended.
What is ticker tape? I don't think I've actually ever known.
It's paper.
Oh, right, okay. Obviously, because of the juntery side effects of the current climate that they're in, there is a building called it's like the School of the Navy, which is the worst place to get sent to. And it's literally across the bay from the River Plate Stadium. And they can hear the cheering from the stadium. And they're like, oh, I hope it goes well for us, because otherwise we're probably going to be in even more trouble than we are.
The Dutch have twice the chances. Johnny Rep misses a sitter. But Mario Kempes scores his 5th goal of the tournament. He's now joint top scorer with Rensenbrink, and he spends most of the second half handballing and not getting booked.
I remember watching this, and every few minutes, the commentator David Coleman say free kick to Argentina, and it was honestly, out of the time, even as a kid, I just realised this is just corrupt, you know.
With 8 minutes to go, substitute Dick Naninga heads an equaliser. He's back from his suspension for laughing. And in the last minute, Robbie Rensenbrink hits the post.
Hit the upright, didn't he?
Yeah. Had that gone in, the Dutch would have won the World Cup and he would have been the top scorer.
And they probably wouldn't have made it home.
1-1 at full time, goes to extra time. Mario Kempes scores a stupid goal where 2 Dutch defenders run into each other. But it sneaks in, and then Bertoni adds a 3rd. So Argentina win the World Cup. The Netherlands become the first team to lose 2 consecutive finals. And Alberto Tarantini, the Argentinian left-back, is the first and only player to play in a World Cup final without a club.
Sorry, is he the one that ended up signing for Birmingham City?
Yes.
So he was without a club, then he went to Birmingham City.
It was, if anything, worse.
Yeah. He was nicknamed Conejo, which means rabbit, because he had big teeth. During his 23 games with Birmingham City, he flattened Brian Greenough of Man United. and once waded into the crowd to punch a heckler.
Wow, Brian Greenhoff's been referenced twice in this, and he wasn't even in the World Cup.
The Netherlands team, Jan Jongbloed, came back to be the goalkeeper in the final. It was his final appearance. His first game had been 16 years earlier. He'd carry on playing club football for another 8 years, but retired at the age of 45 after having a heart attack during a game.
At this point, you're like, all right, my body is telling me something.
In a tragic side note, his son, Eric, was also a goalkeeper and was killed during a game, aged 21, when he was struck by lightning.
Was it real this time?
No bullets from the Saudi government in this one. The Argentina squad, coached by Cesar Menotti, who was a bit of a lefty, and so everyone thought the junta would get rid of him, but they didn't.
He was a big fan of the arts, I think, Menotti, like the Spanish guitar and things like that.
Yeah, he had long hair, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He said, there's a right-wing football and a left-wing football. Right-wing football wants to suggest that life is a struggle, demanding sacrifice. We have to become of steel and win by any method, obey and function. That's what those with power want from the players. That's how they create useful idiots that go with the system. He's very much the Gareth Southgate of his day. René Hausmann, their winger, once scored a goal against River Plate, which he says he doesn't remember because he was drunk. When he was growing up and his mom was in poverty, said to her, "Mother, don't worry, because these legs will save you."
Because I am joining a strip joint. I will be the full Monty of Montevideo.
Sub-goalkeeper Ricardo Lavolpe would manage Mexico in 2006, where he'd get told off by FIFA for smoking in the technical area. I don't know what this means, but I'll tell you what it says anyway. He would wear a lucky tie and perform oriental rituals. The captain, Daniel Passarella, nicknamed El Gran Capitan, El Kaiser, and the Chief. So he was the Kaiser Chief. He would manage Argentina in 1998, during which time he banned long hair, earrings, and homosexuals. Claudio Caniggia and Fernando Redondo both refused to play for him.
Because they had long hair or because they were
read into that what you will.
And Ricky Villa scored the Wembley goal of the century in the 1981 FA Cup final replay.
And still Ricky Villa! What a fantastic run! He scored! Amazing goal!
Not even the best goal in that game. No, I'm just being contentious.
Yeah. Keith Houchin was robbed.
No, I think there's a great goal by Mackenzie by City in that game. Lovely goal.
The top scorer at this World Cup is Mario Kempes of Argentina, who has 6 goals, including 2 in the final. Doesn't score any in the first round.
Yeah, that's interesting when you brought that up. I didn't realise that.
He was both nicknamed El Toro, the Bull, and El Matador.
He's fighting with himself. That's the dichotomy.
Wasn't he from? He was from a regional part of Argentina. He wasn't from Buenos Aires. He was from up north or something.
Yeah, that's right. He's from the country. He was the only foreign-based player in the Argentina squad.
Was it Valencia?
He'd been top scorer in La Liga for Valencia. His goals in the final were his last goals for Argentina. He was 23 years old.
So was he then not selected after a little bit? I know he played in the 82, I think, in the 82 World Cup, but he didn't obviously do anything.
He played 12 more games for Argentina after that. Didn't score another goal. Time now to rate this World Cup, to find out where it sits in our World Cup of World Cups league table, currently headed by 1966 England. So, host nation.
I'm giving them 1 for it's actually happening, but everything else about it was bad.
Controversy.
Yeah, I'll give it a 10. Wonderful entertainment for the controversy.
Peru getting beaten 6-0.
Germany getting turned over by Austria. Tunisia doing well. But then it's tempered by the fact that a lot of it was corrupt. So,
goal of the tournament, Gemmels, isn't it?
It really means something in my life. It got us really interested in football. The final was interesting in its own right. There's been worse finals, definitely. I think it was impressive that he hadn't scored in the first raft of games. He did really well to get them out. He seems like a nice man as well.
It was the pinnacle of his career, which I think it should be for a top scorer.
I remember the Coca-Cola kid was always keeping the ball up, and it was the adverts of them doing keepy-uppies, and that keepy-uppies became a thing as a result of that, and lots of kids had Argentina strips as a result of it. It was and the Argentinians that signed for English clubs.
Oh yeah, because Ardiles came over after this.
Ardiles Mobilia and Alex Sabella signed for Sheffield United, and they wanted to get Maradona, but they couldn't raise the money.
Entertainment value, I've got some stats here. There were 2.68 goals per game, 6 0-0s, 7 1-0s, and 3 dead rubbers. I have the results in then for our score for the 1978 World Cup in Argentina. I can reveal that it has scored 6.22, which puts it in 8th place out of 11 in the leaderboard. It is below 1930 Uruguay and ahead of 1962 Chile.
I'm sure that the Argentinians will love being between Uruguay and Chile. I think that'll be. They're famously all happy with that.
Before we go, a teaser for everyone to think about until the next episode. In this World Cup, Dick Naninga was the first substitute to score in a World Cup final. Can you name the 3 players who've done it since? 3 substitutes who've scored in World Cup finals. I'll give the answer at the start of the next episode, when we'll be talking about blatant, unpunished match fixing, the quintessential late bloomers, the most passionate goal celebration, a penalty shootout, an on-pitch assault, and Garforth Town's best ever player, as we go to Spain for the 1982 World Cup. Gavin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was a pleasure, lads. I really enjoyed that. Honestly, I did.
Good. Excellent. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, the best place is to probably go to Amazon and get my book, Buddhism and Other Such Rubbish. You can get that on Amazon. That's what I'd like to recommend.
And you've got a sitcom that exists online somewhere. Is that on Amazon as well?
That's on Amazon Prime, yeah. It's called I've Got a Job for You, Gav. So if you just type that in, you'll find that and you can watch it for free.
And I believe you do a niche football podcast as well.
I do a podcast called Hotbed. That's on all the good platforms. It's about the history of Northeast football from 1888 onwards. We're up to about 1900 now, so there's a long way to go before we get to 1978.
Big fan of ridiculous projects like that. Yeah. So this has been the World Cup of World Cups. I'm James Cook.
I'm Paul Savage.
Well, I'm Gavin Webster.
Until next time, ta-ra.
Bye.
Bye-bye.